a conflict in values. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is the fact that it is my belief, realistically, for each and every one of you, that you have been subjected to various value systems, and without even recognizing it, don't know that you've been taught values that are actually from systems that somewhat are in conflict with each other. Okay? In other words, the average North American Jew, the average North American Jew who's been subject to halacha, has been brought up under certain values, and the values of Torah and the values of Western society. And for most people, they think those values aren't in conflict with each other. And in many ways they're not. Right? We are able to live as halachic Jews in North America or whatever, and everyone's happy. Okay? Because North America lets us do what we want to do and so forth. But what we don't understand is how there is actually inherent conflict in the values that we're dealing with. And the fact is that we are presented with certain values, and we don't really recognize how those values connect with other values. In other words, how Torah values connect with other values. And this comes up all the time in Eretz Yisrael. And we really don't know, in many ways, we don't even have the recognition of the necessary language of dealing with it. Let me give you an example. The concept of freedom of religion. Okay? You think freedom of religion is a good value?
Yeah.
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 Generally.
Generally. We Jews have excelled in North America because the freedom of religion has been extended to us. So we've been allowed to practice our religion. You do your thing, I do my thing, it's great. And that's a value system within Western thought. That's a very important idea within American values. Right? That you have an aspect of freedom and you should be able to practice religion the way you want. Okay? Great. And the truth is that it's a value because you really think that it's a good thing. You think it's a good thing. You're not interested in causing a person. I would say that you would look upon people who force others to practice another religion, or who basically force others to forsake their religion and be subject to persecution. You look upon them as pretty negative, right? Right. So we look at it. For example, look at Torquemada and the Inquisition, right? The Inquisition. How do you look at it? That's not right. It's not the right thing what to do. That the way they tortured people to try and abide by their religion, right? We like the idea in America that people were given the rights to practice their religion, right?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Give them their rights.
Okay. You guys ever read something called the Chumash?
I think I've heard of it before.
Okay. Do you think that Torah accepts freedom of religion?
No.
No.
They don't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the idea that Yoshua, right, before he conquered Eretz Yisrael, gave the people in Eretz Yisrael 3 choices, right? They were told, listen, you leave, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Or you could stay and observe the Noahide code. Right? You can follow the Shem Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Or we're going to wipe you out. Right? There's no concept of toleration saying, listen, we're going to practice freedom of religion. If you are worshippers of Baal, we're going to let you practice your freedom of religion. Right? We're going to let you have your Baal temples. Right? Now, how do you understand that? How do you understand it? Does it mean the Torah doesn't believe in freedom of religion? Yeah.
It possibly could have been that what Yeshua, what the code is implying is that in order to protect the Jewish people from being influenced by idolatry,
Yeah.
they kind of have to think of the
Right.
future generations and stuff. So it's hard to be with another nation that still worships
Absolutely
idols.
true. Thank you. You've just given Torquemada's reason for expelling the Jews of Spain. It's exactly Torquemada's argument. Exactly what he said. Torquemada was saying, listen, I want all the Jews and Muslims out of Spain because we are practicing the true religion of Christianity here and we don't want any influences. So get out of the country. If you want to convert, great. You could stay here and convert. You've just given the argument of Torquemada.
Well,
Okay, and you're saying that basically is the argument of Yoshua, the Habdul Chavdei Abdullas. Right? So you're saying that Torquemada basically had this value. And you see, then you can understand his value. You just disagree with the religion he was trying to protect. But you're basically saying, yeah, I can understand his value. So you're not upset about him kicking out the Jews. You totally understand it.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, well, then how could you understand Yoshua basically saying to the Ammon that they have to get out?
what about saying just the idea of that?
By the way, I'm putting you on the spot, yes, but the fact is because we have benefited from religion, and we say, hey, there's some benefit. The fact is how do we understand
What
this
Torah,
issue?
What is the
But
Jewish
isn't the
perspective on that,
assumption
actually?
Israel, it's like Spain belongs to Christians, but Israel belongs to Jews. What, isn't it a territorial matter too?
Oh, great, great.
So
But it's interesting because you say Israel belongs to Jews based upon our perception. ISIS says Israel belongs to Muslims. So basically, you can understand ISIS say, listen, we think we have this land based upon Torah rights, and therefore we should be allowed to impose our religion on everyone in that land. So you're giving ISIS's argument.
What happens when there are wars? It's been happening.
So basically, war is between two people who basically say, I'm right, you're wrong, and therefore there's no tolerance.
But ISIS, you can't really consider ISIS as a Muslim, they're just war criminals, really. Because the true Muslims, there's a lot of sheikhs from Egypt and Jordan.
Okay. Let me point out something.
The Quran says that Israel belongs to Jews.
Wait a sec. Let me say something. Okay, I'm not a Quran expert. Quran expert. The fact is I do know that if people want to discuss Judaism, I can tell you that there is a remarkable difference of opinion on what Judaism stands for.
Yeah.
Okay? And even I'm going to take the word Judaism in its broadest sense. In terms of, let's say, same-sex marriages and gay rights, right? One of the most significant proponents of same-sex marriages, people who were in the forefront of gay rights and same-sex marriages, were perceived to be representatives of Judaism. You know that, right? If you ask someone on the street, what does Judaism say about same-sex rights and same-sex marriages, they would sit there and say Judaism is very much behind same-sex marriages. Okay? Now, you're looking at them... You're looking...
Israel is the world capital for that.
Well, no,
So
forget
it's
Israel.
like
Forget Israel.
Like reform or...
Yeah, wait a sec. Wait a sec. Same-sex marriages in the province of Ontario, one of the leading advocates who basically brought it about was the Reform Rabbinate in Ontario. When Barack Obama spoke at a Reform convention in the States, okay, after he repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, right? He got up there and said, and of course we repealed with your help he said this to the Reform Convention, with your help, we repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the whole place got up in standing applause, because Barack Obama basically saying Barack Obama basically was saying it's because of Reform Judaism. Now, I know and you know that if you express another term of Judaism, let's call it Torah Judaism, it's far away from that concept. So the truth is whenever you present the word religion, okay, a religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, first of all, there are variant opinions on this. Okay? Now, what I never like is one person taking one opinion on it and saying this is what all people think at this point. So I don't like people saying that every Muslim is a terrorist. It's not true. Every Muslim is a believer in ISIS. It's not true. There are Muslims who have different opinions. Some of them very much in the world of tolerance and stuff like that. You mentioned sheiks. There are certain sheiks that even have had positive viewpoints towards Israel. The fact is that there are other Muslims, other views within Islam, which are very, very different. ISIS reflects other views. It's the same way that happens in Christianity. There are Christians who think one way, Christians think that, and the same thing happens in Judaism. If you include Reform Judaism, across the spectrum in terms of anything that's called a Judaism. Okay, so then of course there's also a certain spectrum of opinion within Halachic Judaism. Not everyone in Halachic Judaism shares the same perspective on things. But the point is that there are different viewpoints and so forth. So we have to be very careful in our language. At the same point in time, I'm raising the issue of tolerance. Okay? What you're arguing is that if Israel is going to be a Jewish state, it has to be tough on tolerance. But Israel then prides itself on freedom of religion. Okay? The point is that...
the modernism. We're talking Israel back in the day.
Well, okay. Oh, wait. Okay. So you're right. I brought up modern Israel now. The truth of the matter is I'm raising an issue of how do you understand the value of freedom of religion in the context of Yeshua's statement about you better do this or else. Now, the truth is, though, I want to make something very, very clear, because you're right. Let's understand the context of Yeshua's statement. Okay? What did Rachav say to the spies? Rachav was the woman in Yericho who hid the spies. Right?
Oh,
okay? What did she say to him? She said basically, I want you to promise that you'll be okay with me. And eventually Rachav actually becomes a Giora Sedekah. She eventually, as the Mudrashim say, that she eventually married Yeshua. She was a very special woman. But Rachav hid the spies and so forth. But Rachav said something very, very interesting. She said, listen, we all know what you did to Egypt. We all know that you survived in the desert for 40 years. Okay? In other words, let's understand what's going on over here. Egypt got wiped out. Bnei Yisrael went across the desert. Now, how did Bnei Yisrael travel in the desert? Well, they traveled surrounded by a cloud, right? The Anani HaKavod. They had manna coming down from, basically they ate manna. They had a well follow them around in the desert. So what Rachav is basically saying, listen, I get the message. God's on your side. So basically, I want to be with God. The real question that always hits me is, what kind of idiots were there to even sit there and say, we're going to fight you, Yeshua? Are you crazy? Are you actually crazy? I mean, this is not freedom of religion because we're not sure what the truth is. We don't know the truth. We don't know. This is talking about people who basically saw Klal Yisrael, knew what happened to Egypt, right?
And yet they still
turned
a blind eye.
So and they tried to run. Now the truth of the matter is, there's a very interesting Rambam. The Rambam gives various cases of people who lost Bechira, people who lost free choice. Everyone knows the case of Pharaoh, where Pharaoh's free choice was taken away. The Rambam makes another interesting statement about a people that lost free choice. He says, basically the people who inhabited Canaan. And the way I understand what the Rambam is saying is that when Yeshua gave them this ultimatum, right, any sane human being would have sit there and said, I got the message here. Yeah, there is a God, because we're seeing it all around. There's miracles here, and He's on your side, so we're going to follow the Noahide code. We got the message here. You know what I mean? No, but for some reason they sit there and say, no, we're gonna fight them, and we're gonna try and maintain our idolatry. So the Rambam says that's because they lost Bechira. For whatever reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away their Bechira. God took away their free choice. To the Rambam, I think in the Torah, when he talks about Bechira, the point is the Torah's statements, which basically says that you were that the statements in the Chumash, the basis is when you go into Canaan, you have no tolerance. That's not applicable straight up to the modern world, because the modern world is a different situation. Okay? Okay, so the point is, you take a flyer if you want. Take a flyer. And the Dvar Torah if you want. Okay? Okay. Okay. Take care. Yes, Hashem, we'll see you next week. Okay, but the fact is that there's you can't take black and white statements over there to our application today. So the truth is that we understand freedom of religion because we understand that nothing is absolute. Nothing is clear-cut. People are trying to make decisions. We don't have clear-cut positions. We don't have clear-cut idea. And the fact is do we have a certain level of respect for people as they're trying to work out their ideas? So the truth is, there's an interesting Rashi. Rashi in the Gemara Shabbos. Okay? There's a person, this is just giving an example of freedom of religion from a halachic perspective. The Gemara talks about cases of non-Jews who wanted to convert. Famous cases where non-Jews approached Shammai and Hillel wishing to convert. The most famous one is the guy who wanted to convert on regel echad, on one foot, right? On one foot, which meant he wanted to have a fast answer. What does Judaism stand for? Killing all Torah on standing on one leg, right? Okay, so Shammai said, get out of here. Torah's too complex. Don't mock it. Hillel said, okay, haftarecha kamocha, and don't do to your friend what you don't want done to yourself. Everything else is commentary, and basically gave the person a basic approach to Torah that the person went on. There were actually 3 cases of non-Jews who did that. The second case is this case of the regel echad. The third case is a guy who wanted to convert on the condition that he become Kohen Gadol. Shammai said, get out of here, you can't become Kohen Gadol. And Hillel said, okay. So he said, okay, let's do this. And then he told the guy to go learn. And the guy read that Zar HaKarov Yamut. A person is not a Kohen if he brings a sacrifice should be executed, should be killed. So he went back to Hillel and said, who's that referring to? And Hillel said, it refers even to David Melech. If you're not a Kohen, you can't bring sacrifices. Even if you're David Melech. And the guy got the message, I guess I really can't become Kohen Gadol, can't I? And no. So the guy said, okay, I'll be okay just as a Pashut Jew. Now the truth is that 3 Gerim then all got together one day and they said, great is Hillel because he brought us under the country of Shechina, because Hillel knew how to answer us and how to work with us. Okay? The first case is an interesting case. The case was a person who went to both Hillel and Shammai and said, how many Torahs are there? Okay, so Shammai and Hillel both answered, there's 2. Torah Shebechtav and Torah Shebal Peh. There's the written Torah and the oral Torah. So the non-Jews said, convert me. Okay, it's more Shabbos, by the way. Lamed Aleph, Lamed Aleph. Okay, so the non-Jews said, convert me on the condition I only accept Torah Shebechtav. Hillel, Shammai, get out of here. Hillel said, okay. Okay? Now, interesting question. When Hillel said, okay, what did he mean? Did he agree to learn with him, or did he actually agree to convert him on that condition? So it seems, according to Rashi, he actually agreed to convert him on the condition that he was that he only believed in Torah Shebechtav. So Rashi says that's because Hillel knew in the end he'd be able to convince him of Torah Shebal Peh. Okay? Now, so what did Hillel do? Converted him, and then he taught him. He got across to him that you have to believe in Torah Shebal Peh. The way he got across to him is a famous story. Sat down with the guy and started his Jewish education. How do you begin Jewish education? What do you start with? Aleph Beis. You know the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
remember the other ones. I just didn't remember the details.
Okay. So the Aleph Beis, he started with Aleph Beis. So the guy went home and studied Aleph Beis. Came back the next day and said, okay, Hillel. Hillel says, okay, let's see how you know it. Okay, what letter is this? The guy said, Aleph. So Hillel said, no, that's a Taf. How do you pronounce it? No, it's an Aleph. No, it's a Taf. T. What's this letter? That's a Beit. No. It's a Shin. So the guy says, wait. So Hill's going through it and completely switching around the order of the Aleph Beis. The guy says, wait a second. Yesterday you told me this was an Aleph. Now you're telling me it's a Taf? So Hill says to him, if you believe me in telling you what the letters of the alphabet are, the Aleph Beis are, then believe me in telling you that there's a Torah Shebal Peh. And the guy said, got it. Now what was he really telling the guy? He says, nothing written has validity by itself. There always has to be an oral starting point. Okay? Anything you read, like if a guy sits and says, here's the Holy Bible. Well, who told you it's holy? So your first step is believe in the guy who tells you it's holy, that this book is significant. So your first step is not the book. The first step is always the teacher. It's always the oral lesson. So Hillel said basically that's why Torah Shebal Peh always has to precede Torah Shebechtav. And therefore that's why we accept Torah Shebechtav. So that's why we accept Torah Shebal Peh. The guy bought it. Now, Rashi has an interesting question here. According to Rashi, Hillel converted him because he didn't believe, even though he didn't believe in Torah Shebal Peh.
Hillel converted Rashi?
No, Hillel converted the non-Jewish guy. Right? Okay?
Yeah.
So Rashi's explaining it. Right. Okay, no, it's good
Sounded
to clarify.
like you said.
Right. It's good to clarify. So Hillel said, basically Rashi says, how could Hillel convert him? Because to convert, a person can't deny any law in the Torah. You can't say, a convert can't say, I'm going to follow all the mitzvahs except that I'm still going to have bacon and eggs. You can't convert. That's kaifer b'davar echad. You have to accept the system, right? Yeah. So how could Hillel convert him, right? When he basically said, I don't believe in Torah Shebal Peh. So Rashi makes an interesting statement. He said, the guy did not deny Torah Shebal Peh. The guy just basically said, I don't believe. In other words, he didn't sit there and say no. He was basically saying,
there's nothing.
I don't know. This Torah Shebal thing I have difficulties with. Yeah. And Rashi said for that, Hillel was still able to convert him. Why? Because Hillel knew in the end he could correct that problem. In other words, he didn't just convert him to let him stay in his thing. Eventually he understood, but he understood that this is something he could correct. But it was not considered to be kfira.
So what about today with the converting?
There's
many Jews that
but the fact is, as Hillel still said, I know that I'm going to be accomplished in the end. So there are people who say that in the conversion process you can beguile someone if you know in the end he'll be okay.
Are you sure?
That's but that gets into a whole variety of issues about in terms of conversion. I don't want to talk about halacha about this, but I want to point out is that this idea really shows the basis of freedom of religion within Judaism. What Rashi is saying in terms of Hillel and so forth is that we understand that people
can't be perfect,
or people not even can. People are challenged by ideas.
Yeah.
How do you know the truth?
Different ideas.
Yeah.
Challenge different people.
How do you know the truth? So a person who basically sits there and says, "I'm right, you're wrong," that guy's not open to really thinking.
No, he's
but
not.
the person who is open to saying, "Listen, I'm not sure. I have to think." Judaism has tolerance for.
Yeah.
We have concepts of tinnik shenishba, for example, a person who was brought up without a Torah education. We sit there and say we understand why he's not why he doesn't fulfill mitzvot, and he's not held culpable. Why? Because this is the way he was brought up, and we don't have. The idea of Judaism in terms of freedom of religion is not that we're saying it's okay for you to believe whenever you want to believe. It's basically saying we understand the struggle of you trying to find out the truth. So therefore, if a person comes to a certain conclusion, but he's still, searching and so forth, Judaism is understanding that process. And then there's other ideas. The fact is that because in many ways we live in a world where the absolute truth is not easy to actually acknowledge or know or so forth. So we struggle with it. Judaism understands the struggle, and that's the basis of freedom of religion. So when we look at, when you look at freedom of religion from a Western world, I don't know if this is the reason that the fathers of the American independence or the original people who promoted freedom of religion would share totally the Jewish view of freedom of religion. I have certain things where I think the Jewish view of freedom of religion is a little bit different than the American. But the point is that there is a concept within Judaism of understanding the struggle of knowing the truth. Now, the point is, though, is that in many ways I've already sort of started dealing with how do I reconcile for myself freedom of religion, which I respect within Western society and understand within Western society, with what I perceive to be a lack of that freedom of religion in the Chumash text. So I've come to some kind of conclusion. But the thing that's interesting that I'm trying to point out is that a lot of people don't really deal with the conflict of values that we sometimes have to recognize and deal with within our Western society, and that is because we understand that Western society had values. It wasn't just some crazy idea, it was actually a value perception. And that value perception, like for example, freedom of speech, okay, freedom of the press. I don't know how Judaism really accepts, what's Judaism's attitude with freedom of the press? I mean, the fact is that people have ever thought about this. The truth is, laws of Lashon Hara really come up in issues of freedom of the press. Okay, is there a problem with freedom? But the point is you hear the arguments for freedom of the press. Why was freedom of the press so significant in Western society? It's an important value. And then, okay, so how does Torah deal with it? Do we have such censorship within Torah? Do we not let people express their ideas? Well, I'm sure there are some people within Torah who basically are very restrictive on what people can say. Other people are more so. I mean, this became an interesting issue. You know where this became an interesting issue? This is before your time, most likely. With the whole thing with Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. You all know that case over there where he had an affair, whatever he called it. He had some kind of fling in the White House, Bill Clinton, when he was president. And it was all over the news and so forth. So people raised the question, al pi halacha, right? Would you be allowed, if this was halachic, or would that be, Lashon Hara, speaking bad about the guy? And a lot of people said no. because he's a manhig, because he was a manhig, there was a reason for him. There's a reason for this idea. Other people, therefore, he's held to a higher standard. Other people said that's his own private world. We shouldn't be mefarsim it in society. The truth is, in our society, people like gossip. For sure, you shouldn't like it because of gossip. But the fact is,
wait, what started during that time exactly? Like you're saying that people recognized.
Well, what happened was he had a certain
act.
Immoral. He
right.
as
what did that bring out? You're saying in
because he was almost impeached.
Okay.
Okay. So the fact is, it went all over the news and so forth. So people ask the question: would that be considered lashon hara? Because basically, it was describing something bad about the person.
Oh yeah.
He
people
did so.
Looked at like you're saying.
Well, from a halachic question, the question was asked.
They said that.
I mean, people raise the question from a halachic perspective. If this was a Jewish country and a Jewish person did something like this,
it's like an open thing and everyone knows about it. How do you discuss it?
You know, but really, what they were questioning is that how would freedom of the press function in a halachic society? Okay, that was really the underlying question that people were really interested in, because freedom of the press is a great value within Western society, and there's reasons why it's a great value. Even though you have you have like National Enquirers and that kind of stuff, but the fact is, from freedom of the press, we argue that the truth comes out. We argue they're able to ignore
if you look
information.
at nowadays, all the people who are candidates and everything,
right?
They'll say everything they can,
right?
They'll, like, make fun of them to like
right. But that's another issue. But the truth is, like, telling stories about people, right? But the fact is that the question arises where the halachic arguments or rules on speech. Okay, in our Western society, we look upon freedom of speech as very significant. We don't want. We think there's a problem with putting censorship and rules upon speech. We want speech to be very free. Halacha does not have that same attitude of freedom of speech. Laws like lashon hara, motzi shemra, lashon hara for sure. I mean, the fact is, even if it's true, you can't just say something bad about another person. Yeah.
Wouldn't that mean that if freedom of speech was done in halachic sense, you would still have this information, but it would be in like a respectful kind of...
The question is how it would come out is an interesting issue. What I'm pointing out...
It'd still come out, but it would be within boundaries. You would have boundaries. You're right. The point is what those boundaries would be a halachic question. But the fact is that I'm just using that as another example where Western society has certain values. See, what I'm really getting at is this. When you think in terms of values, people think in terms of good and bad, right? Okay, good and evil, right? So you always think that the battle is between good and evil, right? So the point is this is bad, this is good, right? The point is what's often not dealt with, and especially in a world of Western society, is the fact that we've been given two instructions about what is good. We've been given Torah education on what is good, and subtly we've been getting another education of what is good from Western values.
Or not so subtle.
What? Or not so subtle. Okay? And we pick up on this. And the fact of the matter is that there's something inside us that says, yeah, that sounds like a good value.
Well, not always.
Because we've also benefited from it, like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We benefited from it, yeah.
Well, as you know, yeah, in a religious perspective, a lot of the time it's looked down on anything outside of the
that's one. That's one answer.
And that raises problems in itself.
That's one answer.
A lot of things in the world are good and accepted, just aren't
the fact is
properly.
The fact is that answer has a few problems with. First of all, the message is much more subtle. So the truth is the message of our society is much more subtle. So the truth is people are already picking up the message of our society. But the very fact you're able to practice as a Jew, follow halacha in America, already there's a value, there's a concept of freedom of religion that you've already been exposed to and that you've benefited from. And the other person is saying, listen, I think it's okay for you to practice your religion. But gee, that's, especially when you think back to the persecution. So Torquemada would persecute Jews. We look upon that as bad. Come to America, and even someone who's a devout Christian says, listen, but you have the right to practice your religion. Why? Because I believe in freedom of religion. So we sit there and say, gee, it sounds like a nice concept. But then, how do we apply that concept? What I'm getting at is
what
is
the Jewish view?
Well, that's where I got into it. The freedom of religion. I was getting into.
You said it was accepted in like Reform, obviously, because you gave that case in the Reform.
I said that thing about same-sex marriages.
Yes, that they said they were accepting of that. But like, what about you're saying religious perspective? How they're not always accepting of other religions either.
Well.
Because then that would say their religion might be flawed or something, right?
Well, you get into certain limitations. In other words, if a person wants to have child sacrifices in America, and say under freedom of religion, it's our religion to offer child sacrifices, we'll step in and say, listen, there's a limit on freedom of religion.
Also, you can't infringe too much on other people's rights while you practice religion, because
a certain aspect.
Then it would have been.
Yeah, but you're already presenting an argument that says people have rights. See, you're already presenting a Western argument. See, what I'm getting at is you guys are getting involved in the details. And what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And all these other issues. But when you throw out the word rights, right?
The value
and protecting rights,
that
you are basically talking with the values of Western society. That people have rights. Now, I'm not saying that halacha is in conflict with it. What I'm saying is you got that lesson from this system, and you've also got lessons from another system. Okay? And the point is how do you balance those lessons? Do you even see that the lessons are challenging? When you throw out the words rights, does halacha say you have any rights?
To a certain degree, yes.
Like what?
Well, like you're not allowed to take somebody else's life.
That's not a right.
Well, it's saying we do have freedom of choice.
It's a law. You can't kill someone.
Okay.
I want to, but tell me a right.
Oh, I mean like rights, not laws. Okay.
No, what rights do you have? No, I'm not saying that halacha doesn't say you have rights.
But on what we're saying is freedom of choice. That is a Torah right to have.
Where?
You're not supposed to have a freedom of choice?
Where? You have freedom of choice. Everyone makes this mistake about the nature of bechira. What's the nature of bechira? Right? What?
Go to Tovli or King David.
Yeah, fine, but that's not the real. What's the nature of bechira? Okay, so people, you have free choice. Yeah, you have free choice. You can choose not to eat the ham, okay, and nothing will happen, or you can choose to eat the ham, and either God will punish you, or if you actually did it in front of witnesses with hasra, you'll get lashes. That's your choice. Bechira, I mean, when you really think of bechira, you have to understand, bechira has consequences. You can choose. I mean, the Rambam talks about this in terms of bechira. You can choose to do the right thing and get rewarded, or you can choose to do the wrong thing and get punished.
Well, it's done as a precondition then.
What?
In the person.
Pardon?
When you make a choice, it seems like it's already preconditioned.
That's a different argument. Now you're getting into the whole issue of. Now you're getting into the issue of whether it really is choice or not. Okay, that's a psychological issue. And that's to get to the issue. But the truth is choice does not mean I just have the choice to go to King David or Tovli. Choice is, the halachic concept of bechira is, you have the choice to do the right thing and get rewarded by God, or you can choose to do the wrong thing and get punished by God.
So
but don't think that there's no consequences when you sit there and say...
of getting that to that direction, of choosing the right way. Like there's...
No, that's the choice. Now, the point is if a person doesn't believe he's going to be punished, is that really choice? Okay, so if a person, so the Rambam would argue if a person doesn't believe that he's going to be punished for that thing because he never had a Jewish education, then that's not real bechira.
But if he does have a Jewish education,
and then the question is, wait a second, so that's right. So that gets into the issue. That what happens if he has legitimate questions on that thing? But that's a specific question. But the point is, see,
because we interpret Torah many different ways.
Yes,
as well.
exactly,
Many
exactly. But what you're doing,
yeah,
what you're doing, see, you guys are jumping ahead. You're getting into a lot of details, which is great, because I'm sort of sparking your thing. Right, but the fact is go down to the basic starting point, which is really what I wanted to get at over here. The red light's still on, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm trying to get at is that there's a starting point in any discussion of where is it that you want to go. The point is that starting point has a lot of questions in terms of really defining it. One of the starting points that we often don't even think about is the fact that we have encountered variant value systems that we sometimes take as the same without actually looking at it. We'll use terms like rights and not really recognize whether we're talking about halachic value or Western value. Or, if there's an overlap, how does the halachic value integrate with the Western value? And how is it different than non-halachic value?
Right.
Was the point. We don't even think about that.
Balanced, some
we don't even recognize that. The fact is what I've tried to raise is certain things was like freedom of speech. Do I think there's a concept of freedom of speech within halacha? Yes. But is it different than freedom of speech within a pure Western society? Yes. Mm-hmm. But how many people even recognize that? Or when we talk into Eretz Yisrael, we really see these issues in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, well, a lot of the issues, example, what's happening at the Koso, what's happening at the Koto with the women of the wall and stuff like that. On one hand, Israel argues we stand for freedom of religion. We protect all religious perspectives and so forth. Okay. On the other hand,
you're saying Israel holds that, or you're saying
Israel has basically said we stand for freedom of religion.
Right.
Well, freedom of religion would seem to imply that Reform Judaism has a right to practice Reform Judaism in the state of Israel. But the fact is that
Christianity that's there also.
Absolutely. But you know what one of the issues comes up to? Okay, let me tell you. I read somewhere that Reform Judaism was actually offered their own chief rabbinate right at the inception of Israel. Okay, Christians are able to have are in charge of their marriages, and I'm sure Greek Orthodox is different than Catholicism. So Reform Judaism said, hey, let's so they said, listen, you're a certain form of religion, Reform Judaism, and maybe you should have a chief rabbinate. They didn't want it. Why?
Goes against their ideology.
What?
Goes against their ideology
Why?
in many ways.
Well,
Reform Judaism differs from the conservative movement. It's because conservative movement, at least they have an organizing body of rabbis that sit together if they think laws should be changed. Reform doesn't.
Reform does have an organizing rabbinate. CCAR is a rabbinic conference, group, and they get together and discuss issues. And then the Reform rabbinate, if they had a chief rabbinate, would basically say these are people who want to get married pursuant to the religion of Reform Judaism. Now, their flexibility in what rabbis can do is but when you go to a Reform rabbi here, he's marrying you pursuant to Reform Judaism, right? It's just that there's flexibility. There's some Reform rabbis who will do intermarriages. Other Reform rabbis won't. They allow great flexibility, but they do have it. But they said, listen, we don't want a Reform rabbinate.
Wait,
from chief rabbinate. Yeah.
When doing that marriage, what specifically is the difference between like a religious marriage and a reform? Let's say they do everything exactly the same thing. What ends up halakhically being the difference? Like in comparison to conservative reform or
let me ask you something.
They could be exactly the same.
Yeah, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. Okay. See, the question you're asking is remarkably complex, because the truth of the matter is in halacha, there's no rabbi marrying, right? Rabbis don't marry in halacha, right? Rabbis are Masada Kedusha. They're to ensure that the legal requirements to form a marital contractual relationship are met. That's the job. Okay, so therefore, two individuals who meet the contractual obligations to form a halachic concept of marriage. Okay, al pi halacha, right? Fine. So the truth is, if all those circumstances are actually met, then a person could be married al pi halacha. Okay. The fact is a reform marriage is a completely different system. Okay, they
so
talk
you
about
decide to do that
you see,
way you want it.
You see, let me try. Let me see.
With a
is it really what I'm going to say now is every time I say it's going to be controversial.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. I want to
Let's
know
hear
the
it.
controversial. Yeah. Controversial as we can get. You know?
Jews. We don't want to confront. The truth of the matter is an article I wrote that basically says that I forget the exact name of the article, but basically it was unity through understanding. Basically, it says the only way you can have Jewish unity is if people really understand what the issue is. Most people try to hide away from the issue. The fact is that within the term Judaism, okay, we like to think of it as branches and so forth, but when you think in terms of Christianity, you understand that Catholics are different than Mormons, and that Seventh-day Adventists are different than Methodists and so forth.
Right.
Okay, so if a person comes up to you and says, "I'm a Methodist minister," you don't sit there and say, "Oh, you must think like a Catholic priest." No, I'm a Methodist minister. Okay, my religion is Methodist Christianity, not Roman Catholicism. Okay, what is that person saying? That person is saying is that my theology is different than another person's theology. When it comes to Judaism, people shy away from that. We, the Jewish people, have different forms of Judaism that somehow we are willing to accept into our definition of our peoplehood, for whatever reason. Okay? That itself is a whole discussion in itself. Maybe we'll do that next week.
I'm not willing to accept it, but...
Right, but that leads into a whole big issue. That gets into a machlokas between the whole issue of Shimshon Hirsch and others and so forth.
Wait, what is the issue of...
That we, the Jewish people, accept different views of Judaism as somewhat acceptable to being part of our peoplehood. However, what we don't...
They don't accept...
No. Christianity is a totally different issue. Christianity has no issue with peoplehood.
Because you brought it up as like...
Okay, but you see, the fact is what you're talking about...
I'm just, trying to...
Yeah, because you're talking about is a confusion of Judaism, because we don't want to recognize that there's an issue with us being a nation and a religion.
Right.
Okay? Most people don't want to confront that issue. They come up with certain stupid answers and not want to confront that issue. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two, when we deal with the religion of Judaism in its broad sense, we don't want to recognize that within the broad definition of the term Judaism, there are actually different religions. In other words, within Christianity you have Roman Catholicism, Greek Orthodoxy, Methodist, Calvinism, United Church of Canada, Mormons, and so forth, which everyone understands is a different theology. So if you're a person of a member of this faith, you're not. So if you sit there and say, "I'm a Methodist," no one's going to sit there and say, "Oh, well, you think like a Catholic." But Jews don't do that. The fact of the matter is, is within the theology of Judaism, there are major differences in theology that make many of the Christian differences pale in comparison. Reform Judaism is a different religion than conservative Judaism, which is a different religion than Orthodox Judaism, which is a different religion than Reconstructionist Judaism. What do I mean by that? Is that they have major theological differences. A person who is a rabbi in the Reform movement studied to become a Reform rabbi. He was taught the theology of Reform Judaism. He was taught how to be a rabbi within Reform Judaism. No, he did not learn the things that you need to get smicha, because it's irrelevant to Reform Judaism. On the other hand, if you go to Reform Judaism, they'll sit there and say, you know something? There's a guy who was an Orthodox rabbi and he never even read Buber. How can he be a rabbi if he never read Buber or Rosenzweig? Because in Reform Judaism, it's important to the theology of Reform Judaism to know Rosenzweig and Buber. To Orthodox Judaism, it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is the reason conversion is such a crazy issue is because we use conversion also to be an entry into peoplehood. But the fact of the matter is, if I go up to a Catholic priest and say, hey, listen, I'd like to convert to Catholicism. Okay, then if I convert to Catholicism, I then go over to a Mormon and say, gee whiz, I'm a Mormon. Why? Because Father so-and-so converted me to Catholicism. Let's sit there and say, what the heck are you talking about? You became a Catholic, not a Mormon. So the truth of the matter is, I once had a case of a guy who really was a sincere convert to Reform Judaism. Okay? I was talking with him. He was a remarkably nice guy. Okay? And I sat there and I said to him, you're going to have a problem, with your kids and so forth and so forth, because your conversion will not be accepted by all Jews. So you may want to consider investigating an Orthodox conversion. And basically at the time, Orthodox conversions were a little bit easier and so forth and so forth. He got angry at me. He said, Rabbi, I converted to Reform Judaism because I believe in Reform Judaism. Don't mock my religion. I said, excuse me, you're absolutely right. He was a person who converted to Reform Judaism. Why? Because he believed in Reform Judaism.
But if he's a passionate Jew, why would he
He's a passionate Reform Jew.
Why would he want X amount of people doubting that he's Jewish?
Because it's irrelevant to him. He's a person converted to Reform Judaism.
Believes is the right.
This is because your issue arises because of peoplehood. So maybe, that's an issue in peoplehood. The fact of the matter is that he is a believer in this religion. The fact is something else, because that's a problem, and therefore, and his argument might be the people should be more accepting of
the reform.
But the fact of the matter is why? Because conversion al pi halacha is a theological statement. And the fact is, most people don't understand that. And that's because most people don't want to confront the inherent problem of nationality and religion. You're Jewish because you're born to a Jewish mother? What does that have to do with theology? That's a statement that has nothing to do with religion. And when the Jews for Jesus argued, when Brother Daniel argued he's a Jew because he was born to a Jewish mother, Israel, the state of Israel, had to do a non-halachic answer. Because al pi halacha, he was Jewish. Because that was the definition of people. Because the definition of people, here it is, we have a people definition that is Jews for Jesus is the same argument. Yeah. I'm born to a Jewish mother. Why aren't I Jewish? That's a people definition. So therefore, the state of Israel says, but if you believe in Jesus, it challenges. But the fact of the matter is that doesn't challenge your halachic identity.
No, you're still Jewish for it. Yeah.
So the point is therefore that decision, the Father Daniel decision was a major decision that said that Israel doesn't follow halacha, which most people have issues with. Yeah, we're all happy with the decision. From world was happy with the decision, but boy, it basically saying that Jewish law, that halacha is not the basis of Israel's decision of identity, which opens the door to say, hey, listen, there can be other issues in identity. The fact of the matter is, most Jews don't even want to deal with it. That's my point. How are you a nation and a religion? Okay, we can have atheist Jews. That's okay. I don't believe in God, but I'm Jewish. Oh, we understand that. We really understand that. Because the person's making a statement that being Jewish is a national statement. But if I don't believe in God, it's okay, I'm still Jewish. But if I believe in Jesus, I'm not Jewish. Or I'm not part of the Jewish people. Well, wait a second. How does that work? Well, we don't even understand how theology and nation, how religion and nation connect. Now, the fact is, there are answers to these questions. What I'm trying to point out is that we don't even deal with it. And maybe I'll do that next time. I'm going to deal with nation and religion, which you want to get through from conversion and so forth. Maybe I'll do that next time. But
well,
the fact is,
there's no way of converting out once you're Jewish.
That's something else. But
it's interesting in stating that because other religions you can become something else then.
The fact of the matter is wait a second. You don't know what other religions say. Okay? The fact of the matter is it's not so simple. The point is, you see, what you're doing, we have issues. And when you guys, what I'm saying, you see, the point is that we have issues, but the underlying aspect of these issues that I'm trying to get at is the fact that in so many ways we don't even confront the issues. We don't even want to talk about them. So my starting point tonight was just the fact that we really encounter two value systems. The Western value system and halacha. And the fact is we don't recognize that in confronting them, we have issues. And that's because, and therefore we have to understand, halacha is obviously paramount. But we have to understand, why do we feel this way about Western values? And then Western values, if it does have a value, how do we understand its place in halacha? Okay? If we think there's a value in freedom of religion, then how do we understand in halacha the opening question of Yeshua's statement where there's no freedom of religion? So I gave you some answers. But the point is you start opening up new ideas. The truth is, then we got thrown off into over ideas. You asked a whole bunch of questions because we really point out there's so many fundamental issues in terms of who we are as Jews aren't even confronted. Like, we don't understand. I'm not even being critical about this. I've talked to Reform rabbis, and I've been able to say to them, listen, we're different religions, and they say, yeah, different theologies. I would never make... the degree of becoming a Reform rabbi is a degree based upon their theology. The degree to become an Orthodox is a degree based upon our theology, Orthodox theology. It's a different religion. Okay? I'll just end with a cute story. I once, a guy, I was trying to make this point to a guy, so he actually told me about a course. I said, so go listen to what this guy has to say. So it was a Reform rabbi who was going to give a talk on the most important Jewish philosophers of the 20th century. Okay, so this guy opens up, who are the two most important Jewish philosophers of the 20th century? Okay? Who do you think would be the two most important Jewish philosophers of the 20th century?
Moses Mendelssohn, I guess?
No, he's not 20th century.
20th century.
And Moshe Mendelssohn was a firm guy. Okay, Moshe Mendelssohn was very, very
good. He's the Enlightenment.
Absolutely, he was a big Talmud Chacham. So in the late 1700s, he was considered one of the Gedolim in Germany.
Yeah, he was one.
The fact of the matter is that when people talk about Moshe Mendelssohn, I get very, very upset because usually it's not based upon really understanding what the issues were with him. But today, Moshe Mendelssohn was big. It's not a simple case with Moshe Mendelssohn. Okay? Okay, so the fact of the matter is, don't throw Moshe Mendelssohn, but I didn't say that. 20th century. Moshe Mendelssohn had issues. There's issues. As the Rav says, Moshe Mendelssohn wasn't makabel over the generations, but the fact of the matter is that, I heard someone say B'Shem Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik. He said, between the Besht and Moshe Mendelssohn, most likely Moshe Mendelssohn was more didactic in Pratei Halacha than the Besht. That's the Baal Shem Tov. But in terms of who was accepted by Klal Yisrael, the Besht was accepted, and Moshe Mendelssohn wasn't. But Moshe Mendelssohn was a big guy. Don't throw around that term. Usually when someone throws around that name so lightly, it usually means that the person that talked about him didn't know what he was talking about. In the 20th century, okay? So who are the two greatest philosophers of the 20th century? This guy. So this Reform rabbi said the two biggest were Franz Rosenzweig and Martin Buber. You guys ever hear those names?
Heard of Martin Buber.
Heard of Martin Buber. Haven't heard of Franz Rosenzweig. Okay. So the fact of the matter is that, yeah. So the guy said, yeah, I understand that. In Reform Judaism, absolutely, Franz Rosenzweig and Martin Buber were considered to be the two greatest philosophers of the 20th century. But I said to this guy, now if you went over to Kollel Avreichim, okay, you went over to the Kollel, and you said to him, "You guys know about Franz Rosenzweig or Martin Buber?" Most likely the response you get is, "Franz Rosenzweig, no, or do you know Franz Rosenzweig or Martin Buber?"
Yeah.
Most likely the response you would get is, "Franz Rosenzweig. No, I don't know him. Martin Buber. Is he Moshe Buber, the sheikh down the street?" I mean, the fact of the matter is that I pointed out to this guy. No. If I asked you for the most important Christian theologian of the 20th century, would you have any idea? No, because you're not interested. Because it's a different religion. Now, the truth of the matter is maybe in a more eclectic perspective, I would want to read concepts. So the truth is, there are Orthodox rabbis. The truth is that Franz Rosenzweig was a Baal Tshuva. The truth of the matter is I've tried reading The Star of Redemption, and which is Franz Rosenzweig's classic book. There are a lot of from people who I personally am not into what Rosenzweig was interested in, but a lot of people do read. A lot from people read it. I'm not saying there's a lot from people who study Rosenzweig. I'm not taking away from it. Martin Buber obviously is read by more eclectic understandings of that. Personally, I think Martin Buber is a great Christian thinker. The fact is that I'm not a big fan because Martin Buber is really anti-halachic. But the fact of the matter is that this guy was making a statement about theology. Reform Judaism's theology is different than Orthodoxy. But how many therefore, a Reform rabbi makes a statement, it's pursuant to his theology. Then you have, well, how could a rabbi say this? He's a Reform rabbi. He's going to state what he believes in. I understand why Reform rabbis are in favor of same-sex marriages. That's their belief. And they'll sit there and say that their belief is based on Torah. They'll use the same terms. A Reform rabbi says that in his idea, Torah is in favor of same-sex marriages. Yeah, his definition of Torah is in favor of same-sex marriages. It's not my definition of Torah. But how many people are able to understand theological distinctions? We shy away from it. Okay, and now some way we shy away from it is because we're afraid to ever confront disagreements, because we have too many people in the Orthodox world who don't even want to deal with halachic disagreement. So they present things as black and white, even in terms of shitas that are al pi halacha.
When you, like you said before, in halakha, you do this thing, it's right. If you do that thing, it's wrong. You get punished for it. So
no.
You're punished. The feeling of you're punished if you look into all those things.
That's within one viewpoint.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that's a different argument. The fact is, though, is you have to make distinctions
that
between
I think gets into the mindset.
But the fact is therefore they can't deal with disagreement. But the point is, though, is that even within halacha they can't deal with disagreement. But you have to make a distinction between disagreement within halacha and disagreement outside halacha. It might be worthwhile if you guys look at on our website, on the Nishma website, there's an article up there called Tolerance. Okay, and it deals with the difference in tolerance within halacha and tolerance outside of halacha. But the point is you have to deal with the concept of theological distinctions. But most people don't even deal with it. So what I'm just pointing out, we got thrown off today in all these different ideas. But the fact is that issues exist in theology. The fact is issues exist in values. We are subject to a lot of different values, and we don't even understand how to reconcile those values. Like even the last issue, nation and religion. How many Jews recognize that we are using the term Jew for two completely different definitions? It's like saying, here's a club. You can join this club if you're a tennis player or if you happen to like roses. What does one have to do with the other? Yeah, but you're a Jew, nation and religion. How does it come together? Anyways, maybe we'll do with that next week. Okay?